This is the work session of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held January 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the City Council Chambers, Riverfront. So first, let's ask our clerk to take the roll. Thank you. Okay.
Councilmember DeWillis?
Here.
Councilmember Duvernay?
Here.
Councilmember Karat? Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Palisari?
Present.
Vice Mayor Wilden?
Here.
And Mayor Linsky?
Here. Thank you. Okay, 3 items for discussion, consideration, possible direction of staff this evening. First up is a discussion and council direction for the future administration of the outside agency grant program. Evening, Mr. Cook.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jeff Cook, Accounting Manager for the city. Tonight we're here to just present on direction for the outside agency funding program. I'll be co-presenting with Kirsten Lennon and Ryan Bigelow. We'll give a little history on the program, how we do it here in Cottonwood, what some others are doing, and then some suggested changes moving forward. So to begin things, the feedback that we heard from council is there was a request for possibility of more funding, potentially some more council input in evaluations of applications. We were asked to look into more dollars for underserved communities, and then including financials prior to the application process. And so just a little history of the program. It really started as a building community grant program back in fiscal year 2016 with a budget of $15,000. It was a lot smaller of a process. There were community members and council representation on the scoring committee. These were for what we deemed value-added services, not core services, so not like some of the larger programs that we're funding through the program that you all know today. In fiscal year 2020, with direction from the council, the program was adjusted to allocate $100,000. It was to incorporate competition amongst all nonprofits to make it a competitive process. We pulled some nonprofits off of like line item budgeting out of the budget and made them apply through this process to compete against others. And at that point in time, there was not a desire for council to have representation on the scoring committee. 2 years later, the budget was increased $50,000. There was an emphasis on encouraging collaboration, helping the vulnerable, the underserved populations. And again, there was no council representation on the scoring committee. And so we're here looking forward. This program's evolved and changed, and we're just here to listen to the council and see what the direction is moving forward. And with that, I'll let Mr. Bigelow speak about neighboring communities and how they handle similar programs.
No. I'm still on this one.
You're
Still on this one, yep.
Oh, I just wanted to do the share back. Okay.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay, Mayor Council, Ryan Bigelow, your Director of Strategic Initiatives. So what do the other places do? First of all, I want to thank Heather Rowe, our management analyst, for doing a little research for us on this. So she put a lot of work into it, and we found a couple of other communities that have similar programs. I think what you'll find is there's no real industry standard for something like this. It does come up to each council individually and how they would like to run it. First of Pima County, they administer a community workforce development and an attractions and tourism departments grant. So what they do is they essentially separate it into 2 different buckets of money. They have the community and workforce development that targets the economically disadvantaged and other at-risk populations. So that's kind of one bucket of money. And then they have a totally separate committee that works out the attractions and tourism part that does the events, celebrations, and programs. So a unique part of the Pima County is they have 2 separate grants. Both of those are scored out by citizen committees, all citizen run. Sedona, they have a small grants program, also done by a citizen committee, but they have a staff liaison assigned to the committee to kind of help them navigate that. The council is not involved at all in any of the scoring there. And one thing that I know that Sedona does is from their nonprofits is they are committed to asking for all of the financial information from I.R.S. Nonprofits and financials from them. We looked at Flagstaff. Flagstaff has a couple of different grant programs. The first is they focus on sustainability. So what's unique about that is that they allow both nonprofits and private locally owned businesses to apply. A lot of the other communities are just nonprofits. Flagstaff has opened it up to privately owned businesses. Their Engage, Empower, and Elevate Grant Funds project is a separate grant that provides employment opportunities for their folks experiencing homelessness to help engage their community and try to help with litter abatement. So they have 2 different grant programs. Both of those are also reviewed by a committee from the public. And then we looked at Douglas. Douglas has a community program. Both in this one, the mayor and the council review and approve. So this is just done by mayor and council, no staff or committee involvement. And what we see with Douglas is that they really emphasize that the city reserves the right to continue or discontinue the program based off of budget. None of these are really guaranteed depending on how the budget is looking annually. So those are 4 of the different programs we looked at. There are a lot of different to compare to. We felt like those are the most relevant for your information. And now I will hand it to Kirsten.
Trying to figure out IT issues while. Good evening, I'm Kirsten Linden, the Financial Services Director for the city. And so our current process is that we accept grant applications in the spring. We have a committee that gets together and discusses them and scores them. And then we, as a group, come up with awards. Then we bring them to council and we get council approval on the awards based on those committee scores. It's all based on if there is funding every year. So every year during the budget process, we fund the program, but if there's not enough funding available when it comes time to implement the program, then we wouldn't do it. It would be a council decision. We do require quarterly financials from each organization, and we require a annual at the end of the grant program. The quarterly financials have to be turned in with their invoices so that they can receive their payment, and we do not send the payments without those quarterly financials. We have tried to keep the process simple, make it easy for staff and for the grant applicants. So as Jeff and Ryan both mentioned, what we heard from you is that you would like to increase the funding or change the funding amount, that we want to serve more underserved communities and areas of the city. We want financial information up front when they apply for the grant, and that we want to have proof of nonprofit status, which we've always required that anyway. So what we would like from you would be maybe to define the criteria to see what you want to base those grants upon. Is it the strategic plan? Is it solely based on underserved areas of this community? Or is it a combination of both? And then would you like to have more input on the scoring of the grant applications? Would you like to have 2 council members be part of the scoring of the applications? Would you like to have all the council members score the applications? Or would you just like to have it be the way it has been with staff scoring and bringing you a recommendation? And with that, we will open the floor with discussion from you and look for direction.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Lennon. Well, I think you summed up our discussion last time we spoke about this. So I'd like to kind of just hear from the rest of council how you feel about their suggested changes and maybe try to give staff some more clear direction on how much to increase the funding. You know, whether or not we want to kind of bifurcate this process, you know, maybe separate tourism and marketing from social programs or nonprofits. And then how much involvement does council want to have on this committee, if any? I guess I'll kick things off. I kind of like how we did things in the past where it was tied directly to our strategic plan. I think it's important that that we still continue that, the program being tied to that plan, because that is, very reflective of what this council's vision is for the community. And I think it helps when we have our nonprofits and others aligned with our strategic plan, so we can get more accomplished, because we know as a council we can't do everything and we don't have the funding to do everything. So I really like that it's tied still to the plan, but I like that Pima County separates tourism and marketing from the rest of the program. I think that may alleviate some of the concerns we've had where we're not funding some of the social programs enough. So maybe we could, weight it separately and just again bifurcate that program. I like that idea, and I also feel strongly that council. I could get on board with a couple council members attending the committee, but in general, I think it's important that council let professional staff score everything, and based on our how we weight things, and based on our direction to staff. But if we get involved as a council, I just feel like it's going to open things up to, just selecting our favorites, for example, or just, getting overly influenced. And I think it's nice just to have an impartial look at it from professional staff or a community committee.
And I agree with that last statement, definitely. And a couple of questions I've got is, who determines if we've got enough money in the budget to pay for these programs, or this program?
So that would be part of the budget process when we are developing the budget, if there is funding available. And it would come down to, do we fund this program or do we fund something else? That is really what it would come down to. Okay,
and who would also be described as underserved? Who would that maybe be?
I think, just the population that maybe does not have funding, low income, lack of housing, those types of underserved areas.
Same question. Who determines that?
I think that could be part of the criteria if we set that in our criteria, that we're looking for serving and helping these organizations that are helping the underserved.
Thank you.
Kirsten, can you go back one frame there?
Maybe. Yes.
Okay. I'd like to see the funding go up to 180,000. I like the 2 council members on the scoring committee with staff. And having it on the strategic plan, I think, is a good idea as well.
Okay. Thanks for getting all the input we asked for last time. I actually didn't think that a 501c was required last time, but I'm glad to know it is. I'm all in favour of increasing it, and I could say 180 or 200, but until we see the budget, okay, definitely an increase. And as far as criteria, I believe that the underserved community, the landscape has changed in the last 5 years, or the last year even. So I think we should revisit that. And as far as having council input, even if we don't have council input when you're doing the scoring, well, what I would like is that when you have all your numbers, if we're able to give input from there. I don't think I would want to be involved in that because you have your scoring. But just to be able to, when you bring everything to council, if we could just have a discussion about it, because we could come to the same, but thanks for all the work.
Any other council members?
I like the idea of increasing funding. As far as the financials, if there's a way for them to break down how much money of that actually goes to people in the city of Cottonwood versus like a regional project. And then I am very much okay with not being in the middle of scoring. I think you guys have a hard enough choice with that. But I'm not opposed to us looking at the numbers after as a discussion before it gets voted on.
Next.
Yes.
So I have no problem with increasing the funding. I do tend to weigh heavily on the underserved population. We've got a lot of people that are really struggling in Cottonwood. They don't make a lot of money. We only have so much to give. And not that other things aren't worth supporting, but I think if we're going to do that, I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to serve our community and its people and its residents. And there are a lot of people that need help, and I don't think it would be hard to distribute that among them. I do like the idea of letting staff take direction and come up with a presentation, bring it to council first in case we have any modifications or anything amongst ourselves that we might want to consider. I watched the last meeting, and it was, I know there were council people looking to talk about that and change it, and they were kind of pushed into making a decision that they didn't seem to want to make. So just bring it in a little bit early so that we're not late on it, and let us look at it. And I'm sure you guys will do a great job on it based on the direction that you get.
I think we've all spoken, right? Yeah, okay. So just to sum up, I think we're all on board with increasing it to 180 if the budget allows. I'm sensing that we don't want to have council involvement on the committee itself.
Yeah.
I think we're still comfortable with tying things to the strategic plan, but we want to weight things more heavily, and I think we're going to rely on you to maybe make some suggestions around that, but to weight things more heavily for the underserved population. I don't think there's any appetite here to separate or bifurcate the program for tourism and marketing. Yeah, so we'll just try to weight it more toward those underserved. And then, what am I missing? Did you get all the rest of the direction that you need?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, good
Thank
deal.
you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is overview and discussion regarding volunteers for the League of Arizona Cities and Towns Legislative Policy Committees.
I'm getting it up for you, Ryan.
Thank you. Collaborating.
That's right. Can you see that? Trying to make sure that everybody on Zoom can see.
Okay, good evening. Again, Ryan Bigelow, Director of Strategic Initiatives, and here to discuss the Arizona Cities and Towns Policy Committee assignments. I would not be doing my job if I didn't tie this into our strategic plan. So Initiative 5.2.3 is encourage participation by Cottonwood City Council members in one of the 5 state legislative policy committees, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. So the League has established 5 legislative policy committees. They're the Budget, Finance, and Economic Development, General Administration, Human Resources and Elections, Transportation, Infrastructure, and Public Works, Public Safety, Military Affairs, and the Courts, and the Neighborhoods, Sustainability, and Quality of Life are the 5 different committees that the League has. So how this works is essentially every community who's a part of the League has the opportunity to have some input on what the League is going to ultimately be supportive of when it comes to legislation. So what would happen here is this council would start with potentially a policy or something that they would like to see get moved through. And then you have the opportunity to sit on one of these policy committees to see different communities and what types of policies that are statewide that they'd like to see moved and supported by the League. So policy committees the ideas are discussed and vetted in the appropriate policy committees, and then they become a league resolution, and then the league decides if they're going to be moved forward, if there's a different legislative solution, or if there's something to be tabled. The proposed issues then go before the policy committees and are drafted into policy proposal or referred for other action. And then those items that are recommended for policy action are presented to the resolutions committee during the league's annual conference. So the resolutions committee, my understanding, is the committee made up of mayors. And all the mayors kind of get to decide then what the next step is for those. And then the adopted resolutions form the basis of the municipal policy statement, which guides the league's legislative efforts at legislation. So right now, today, all we're really looking for is from the council is if there's anyone who wants to be a part of any of these 5 legislative policy committees. There's a timeline for it, and we would actually start developing a policy at the next work session. That would be up to council to decide. We would want to bring forward any developed policies for council approval in March. So a policy that comes from this council needs to be approved by this council to move forward. And then in April, we would finalize council assignments. We would then let the league know who's going to be representing the city of Cottonwood. And then we would submit any council approved policy requests to the league at that point. I know that I believe last year, Vice Mayor Wilden and Councilmember Karat served on one of these committees. So at this point in time, really what we're looking for as staff is some feedback as to if anybody is on the council's interested in participating in a committee, and then if there's any research that you'd like to have us start working on. So we would come back to the February 13th work session with a framework for a policy that might want to go through.
Okay, go ahead.
Really, keeping in mind it's a statewide issue. It's not just local, and there are very few meetings. You can do it via Zoom if you want. I know Councilmember Karat actually went down there. I was on the Economic Development and Finance Committee, and what happens is at these discussions, various mayors, vice mayors, council members bring up issues that are important again for the state, and you just discuss it in a casual atmosphere. And then if you agree, there's the majority, then you will staff would put together the issue and in legal form, and then bring it towards the entire state councils at our meeting. And it's really, it's not labor intensive at all.
When you say you put together something, did you not, does it have to come back to the council?
So my understanding is that it's a new rule implemented this year that the council has to approve it collectively as a body. Previously, and that was part of the issue, was one council member could take a policy to a committee and not represent the entire council. So there were council members who were saying, hey, this is not exactly how we would like to see it. So this year they're going to change the rules, and I actually just got off the phone with them today. They're going to come out with the new rules and make that known to everybody, but that it does need to get approved by a council, so it's not just 1 or 2 council members pushing something through.
Right. Last year, one council member from, I can't remember what city, went rogue and just went at one of the meetings, and the other council had no idea. So the mayor had to come back and negate what had happened.
And when they do go through, then if you are on a committee, your one vote, that you can only vote once. So it's not like one council member can vote yay and one council member can vote nay. It's your one vote. Yeah, exactly.
And so does that first meeting take place where all the communities that are in these committees have a discussion first and then they bring it back to their council? Or is it intended that the council should discuss some of the high level issues that they have and then bring it to that first meeting?
So what we would want to do is have the council discuss some policy that they would want to bring to that first meeting. Okay. And then the first meeting is at where all of the different communities are involved. And then they start vetting which policies they'd like to explore further.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with being on the same committee in Economic Development Finance as well. It's the same committee.
I say I was on 2 of them last time. I'm okay with staying on the same 2 unless somebody else wants it. I think it was on the PD and the transportation one. Yeah.
All right, any other takers?
I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, and that's fine. And also know that at least last year, Deputy Manager Rudy Rodriguez was staff representation on all of these. Not that that staff can vote, but they can be called upon to be part of the discussion, and also just so we know what's going on at the state level.
Mm-hmm. And I'm on the resolutions committee, so I'll be kind of voting at the end.
Okay.
But I'm happy to sit in on one of these if we don't fill it up with council members.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now I've got Vice Mayor Wilden and Councilmember Karat, and then we'll hear back later if anybody else was interested in any committees.
Okay.
Okay. That works for me.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next is discussion and direction to staff regarding legal services. So, Ms. Wilbur, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Share, so stop sharing.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Wilbur, Human Resources Director, and I'm here this evening to discuss our options for legal services. So as Council and probably most of the public is aware, we do not have a city attorney currently, and we need to discuss a plan moving forward for how we will address that. So tonight's items really focus on 2 different items. One is what we are going to do for temporary services in the meantime. We do have a contract with Pierce Coleman to help us in the immediate now. However, if that's not the solution that council would like to use past our immediate need, I would need to know what direction we need to go to find a firm or other services. And then we also need to discuss a permanent solution as well. So first, I would like to discuss what we need to address as far as our temporary services. So like I mentioned, we do have a current agreement with Pierce Coleman. They will be filling the gap immediately. But if there's not a desire to go with them for a longer term, I would just need to know from council what direction we need to move in. So I think I'd like to pause here if that's okay and have discussion on this piece of it before we move into what our longer term solution would be, unless council would like to discuss it in a different manner.
Okay, thank you. So discussion around our temporary need right now, I think for me at least, Pierce Coleman's been serving us for several, at least 3 years now. I think they've been great when we need them. Obviously, we haven't seen them here except for when we were transitioning from Steve Horton to Jenny Winkler. They had a single representative that was here with us from their firm to represent Cottonwood during that transition point. And I've been pleased with their response time and the service that they provided. So I'm perfectly fine continuing to use them through this in this temporary situation that we find ourselves in now. I know that they're well aware of some of the pending litigation that we have here at the city. I know that Ms. Winkler kind of got them quickly up to speed on everything that's happening here, and we've got points of contact now for different attorneys that help us out with, planning and other, land use issues and everything like that. So I think, for the near future, I think we're pretty well represented with this firm, and they've got a deep bench. So, kind of anything that comes up that Ms. Winkler couldn't handle, she would give to them anyway, because they've got just a very broad experience, and they represent many other communities too in Arizona. So I'm fine with keeping them.
I'm also fine with keeping them. They know our background. They know the cases coming up and pending or whatever, and they've proven themselves, I think, worthy, obviously, and they have a great reputation. So I am completely comfortable with them.
I'm okay with them short term. I had some concerns on the initial list, and they were pretty quick to respond and put in other options. So as of right now, as long as those options stay in place, I'm good with it.
So I'll jump in. I'm not so sure the city has been that greatly served by them recently. My problem right now is majority is they are named as a defendant in a large claim against the city, which may turn into a lawsuit before long. I'm not really comfortable having them represent us, and that I can trust that they're going to guide us properly in that. So if we need somebody to cover us temporarily, I think what we need to do, I would really like to have some representation for council. Right now, we need somebody that we can count on and we can trust to get through what the issues that we have coming up and moving forward. Somebody who's qualified to help us find short-term help and also find us a long-term solution. Somebody who's qualified to do that. I think perhaps maybe the way to go is that we can put names in the hat. Human resources, anybody else on staff can throw a name in the hat. Anybody up here on council can throw a name in the hat. And then we can come back together as soon as possible, and we can have a meeting and we can discuss those people and how we want to move forward with that.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that clear. On a temporary basis, you're saying you'd like to move?
Well, on a temporary basis, immediately I'd like to, as soon as possible, hire somebody that can help us through this process, to represent council, and then they would help us find a temporary legal counsel in the interim before we have them also help us find that a permanent solution.
Okay, and so your suggestion is to pick an attorney, like write the name on a piece of paper and put it in a hat kind of thing to select from?
Figuratively speaking, yes. So anybody on council can make a suggestion. Staff can make their suggestions. You can throw Pierce Coleman in there. And I think then we can come together and we can discuss all of those. You can vet them. Human resources, whoever it is, can vet them, check them out, get their credentials, and then we can get together and decide who we might want to move forward with to help us put all those pieces together.
I would tend to agree with that. My concern is that they are named in a claim, which, like Councilmember Matthews said, could turn to a lawsuit. And I'll just say today, when Pierce Coleman emailed the council as a whole, this was this afternoon after Jenny Winkler had resigned, she was still on the email chain. And when I inquired about it, he wasn't sure if she was still working and in the transition. So that really made me a little bit uncomfortable because it was clearly stated that she resigned effective immediately. So that was a concern just from today. But I agree with vetting whoever that people can suggest.
So, temporary Pierce Coleman, yeah, because we need representation right now. Continue with them, not super comfortable with that. Yeah, I think we do need to do some checking, to do some investigating to see if there's a better firm or a better individual out there for us.
I just had one more thing to add.
Sure.
I think actually finding a permanent attorney or legal services, which could be a firm or an attorney, I think to have guidance in that would be imperative, because the last round that we did, it was extremely hard, and I didn't feel we were as well represented as I would have hoped. But that could have been because we were looking for a single attorney, which might have made the choices a lot less, as opposed to opening up to attorneys and firms. So I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right, I think we're split. I don't know if Councilmember Palasari, are you still on the call?
I'm still here.
Would you like to weigh in here?
I'm in agreement. I think that we should look at anybody and everybody that, you all decide that we should look at, vet them, and then...
Sorry, can you pause for 1 second? Okay, can you try again?
Did you hear any of that?
Hold on 1 second. It says
Are you there? I'm not talking. I think you can hear me. Can you hear me yet?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm in agreement that we should, and figuratively speaking, put names in a hat and discuss each and every one of them. And vote.
I jump in, Mayor. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Derek, if you can hear me.
Yeah,
I can hear you, Derek.
Mr. Palasari, we heard from you. Thank you. And Mr. Rodriguez is now, I think, also on the call. So go ahead, Mr. Rodriguez.
So if you heard what I said, can somebody type me a note or say something?
Yeah, we did hear what you said. We heard you. Thank you. If anybody's able to type him a note, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay. All right. And if Mr. Rodriguez wants to come back on, he's more than welcome to chime in. So what I'm hearing is that the majority of council, I think 4, I believe that Mr. DeWillis is...
Temporarily, right? Yeah.
You're fine with keeping Pierce Coleman temporarily, but... Okay, so I think 4 of us are fine with keeping Pierce Coleman temporarily. 3, I believe, would like to put names in a hat, figuratively.
I believe, oh no.
Word was that we will continue to use Pierce Coleman until we can discuss again. But for longer term temporary solutions, we should have several to choose from to make a decision on. And then that would be in the immediate future rather than, and then also having a full-time solution later. So it sounds like we're going to have 2 temporary solutions. One, the immediate now, today, until we make a decision from a larger group on who we can use until we have a permanent solution.
Okay, then let's move on to the next portion of this discussion. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Well, Councilmember DeWillis, so because I mixed up who was speaking. So did you say we can keep Pierce Coleman for today, as in immediately, and look for someone else? Are you saying wait to look for a permanent one, or vet other people to help us look for permanent services, be it a firm?
Keep Pierce Coleman now for a temporary, because we...
Yes, for
this
today.
legal representation.
Yeah.
Tossing names into a hat, figuratively speaking, Yes, and then we go from there.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
Okay.
I think we can always loop back to that again after we talk about permanent services too, if we need to. Because one of my main questions for our permanent solution is if council wants to continue to have a contracted city attorney, one person, or if council would like to move away from that method and model and have a firm represent them as a whole, because that would change how we need to recruit for someone long-term. Or at least that's information that we would need to give a recruiter if someone is recruiting on our behalf. Whether we have a contracted employee or we want to look at firms, we could choose to either do that in-house and have a city-led recruitment, or we could use a recruitment firm to help us find either one of those. So really, I need some direction on what council wants as far as what is your expectation? Do you want a city attorney again, or do you want a firm that we contract with?
I feel strongly that we really should wait until after the election to let the new council decide on kind of what course of action they want to take with regarding, having somebody who's an employee of or somebody who, is from a firm or contracting with a firm for all of our legal needs. So I think we need to figure out who we're going to use in the interim, in my opinion, and then let the new council that's seated decide what they want to do on a permanent basis.
So then, what I heard from the majority of council members, are we going to try to find somebody to represent us to help us in this search? And that's what I think I heard. We have some suggestions. You may have some suggestions. Anybody else has some suggestions, we'll put them in there. We need somebody to come in and help represent us and help us vet anybody that's going to be long-term temporary and anybody that's going to be permanent. Right now, I'm heading towards a firm. I'd really like to explore that. So if anybody has anything different than that suggestion I just put out there, I mean, I think that's what I'm hearing is we're going to go ahead and do that. We need somebody right now, so Pierce Coleman is it. But I do not have any desire to go any farther down the road with Pierce Coleman than is absolutely necessary. And I want somebody that come in and that can work with council and help us find and vet somebody that's going to be qualified to represent the city of Cottonwood, to be the either temporary or permanent legal representative.
I agree. I think that's what the majority have asked for.
And yeah, and I'm picking up on that loud and clear. I hear that too, but I'm very concerned about just sort of picking our favorites, so to speak, and putting them in a hat, so to speak. I think we need kind of more of a process that vets out maybe a request for qualifications or some sort of process that vets out the best firm to represent us through this period until after the election. So I'm not really comfortable with just this council or human resources or whatever other city employee just wanting to throw out names of attorneys or firms. I think there needs to be more of a process that vets them as actually qualified firms. I
think you can marry those two together and do a request for proposal or qualifications. I can work with a procurement team for that. And then any firm or attorney that anyone is interested in, you could direct them to our proposal and ask them to submit a proposal. Okay. And then everyone would have the same criteria to be submitting their work on. So you would still have the say to be able to encourage them to apply. Yep. They would just have to apply or submit their proposal to be considered as a group.
Okay.
Is that something that...
To be considered for what?
For your temporary solution. But I mean, we can use that type of process for any piece, really, of the process.
So, like I said, I think we want to find somebody to help vet us, to help us vet somebody to come in and help us. That is, I think, the first step. That's the first step. I'm hearing that as a majority from council, and what I'm hearing the mayor say is I want to do what I want to do without the majority of council.
I didn't hear that.
Folks in the audience, please just let us have our discussion. Thank you. So, Ms. Wilbur, I think that would work out well if you want to put out a request for proposals so that all attorneys or firms that are applying for this position would then be following the same process, applying essentially, through your process.
Okay.
They all filling out the same information, and this council could then review all the proposals and make a decision on who best to serve us on a temporary basis until, I guess, the new council is seated and makes a different decision.
Can I ask for one clarification?
Of course.
It sounded like Councilmember Matthews is saying that part of the review of the RFP process should have someone who has an attorney, who has legal background to help score and make that decision, or I just really want to make sure I have a good understanding.
I'll clarify with what I'm talking about is, so either we could go and say HR, go out and start finding somebody to come in and represent council as their legal counsel. So, or we can hire a recruitment firm, okay? There are also very good attorneys out there who are very well versed in Arizona law and that help people specifically with these things. And that's kind of what I like. I like to hire somebody that knows the landscape, that knows these firms, and is familiar with city government, state government, county government, that's got those kind of chops, that can help us find somebody to represent us temporarily and then start the search for a permanent solution.
Okay. Yeah, sooner than later.
My concern with that is, do you have somebody in mind? Somebody in mind?
I've got a file with a bunch of people that might be qualified for that.
The attorney that was brought before us at the last meeting was Carrie Lake's attorney, and I am not comfortable with that at all. So we need to make sure that it's a complete council approval.
We'll do the regular, it'll go through all the procedures, and then the council will get to vote on it.
So just, I guess I'm getting more confused than when we started out. So just to be clear, so we're going to encourage, if we have a pet attorney say, we're going to encourage them to apply to submit a proposal through HR. So they'll fill out, I guess, some sort of an application of sorts for all of council then to discuss. Then we can decide which is the best qualified firm to get us through, again, on a temporary basis. And then that firm will then help us as we transition into the next phase of a more permanent attorney. And that may come before the election, it may come after the election. But this firm or individual that we hire would help us through that RFP for a more permanent legal representation. Is that
would help vet permanent legal representation, either an attorney or a firm.
And so what's your, I guess I just don't understand, why then wouldn't you just want to go through that process now?
Because I don't feel comfortable with Pierce Coleman. Last time we went to look for an attorney, it's a very long process, and it could very well take till after the election. This isn't going to be a quick process. But I don't feel comfortable having Pierce Coleman as a temporary legal representation, and I think quite a few of us have expressed that. Yourself and Vice Mayor have expressed that you're very comfortable with it, and I respect that. But there are other members that do not feel comfortable. So it could take till after the election.
Mm-hmm. I guess, but during the last recruitment process, though, Pierce Coleman didn't assist the city with that. To my knowledge, it was all done through HR with council. Is that correct?
Correct. They were just our temporary service that we used. We didn't actually use any attorney through our recruitment process. We just used RIVERFRONT, which is the recruitment company, to do all of our vetting and interviewing and background and everything. They did everything pretty much, except for our coordination here. They did everything with the candidates directly.
So you want to bring in, the majority of council wants to bring in you want to be done with Pierce Coleman. You want to bring in a temporary attorney.
An advisor to advise council and to help us find temporary and or permanent representation.
Okay, so you want to hire an advisor, not an attorney or a firm.
It'll be an attorney. That's who we need to advise us.
So we're actually not.
We need legal advice on these.
So we're not looking to replace our city attorney with another attorney or firm?
We are looking to replace Pierce Coleman for temporary legal coverage, because last time it took us, I think, 5 months, if I'm not quite sure. It was a longer time to actually get a permanent person. So we need legal representation that will represent council, all of us, and the majority of us feel that we should submit names or firms to Amanda. I don't know if I can make it any more simple, but the majority of us have asked for that. So I believe that's how we should move forward, because it's always on the majority of council.
So, are you trying to bring in an attorney or a firm instead of like a recruitment to find a new attorney?
So their major job is going to be to represent us immediately, to be able to answer questions council has in regards to anything that we have to deal with immediately. Then that person is going to help us recruit either temporary or permanent representation. It's just like hiring somebody to go out and find these people.
It's simple. We just voted a majority to keep Pierce Coleman.
We did not vote a majority.
We did not vote. We did not vote. You're right. Four of us just agreed to keep Pierce Coleman on a temporary basis.
On a temporary basis, and Councilmember DeWillis clarified, yes, we should throw names through the process that HR is asking us for. It doesn't have to be the names I like, it doesn't have to be the names you like, because you didn't like one person does not define how we move forward. We would get them all vetted through the exact procedure that everyone else has, and 4 of us have requested that. It is very clear.
So I may be the only one confused here, but is it clear to you, Ms. Wilbur, what they're asking?
I think generally,
here's my concern. I think if we're looking for an advisor, that's one thing. If we're looking for, there's many more things that a legal department does for the city of Cottonwood, not just advise council. So I feel strongly that we need, if council, the majority of council doesn't want to move forward with Pierce Coleman, that's all well and good, but we need a firm that has the breadth of experience to replace Pierce Coleman, not an advisor.
And we need somebody to help us find that. That's exactly. So that should be understandable. We need someone to help us find
Mr. Matthews, let me finish my thought, please. Yeah. The contract attorney that we had in place when we went through the process to hire Ms. Winkler wasn't involved in the process. We hired RIVERFRONT, which is, executive recruitment search firm, that helped us through that process. So I don't know that we need to hire an attorney or an advisor to help us through the process of hiring an attorney. I think there's firms out there that do just exactly that. And it seems to me, if you don't want to move forward with Pierce Coleman, I get it.
So, exactly.
No, excuse me, I'm not finished. If we don't want to move forward with Pierce Coleman, that's fine. We can select, off merits, request for qualifications, a proposal from other firms to replace Pierce Coleman. That makes sense to me. But to have that firm or attorney then help us select the next one doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so yes to do a firm or attorney to replace Pierce Coleman and not be involved in the recruiting. That's just what you said, right? We don't need an attorney to help us go through the recruiting. We would use a firm, correct?
In my opinion, correct, yeah.
Okay, so, but a firm or an attorney, the majority feel that we need to replace Pierce Coleman.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So now you will be able to accept applications for either a firm or an attorney to replace Pierce Coleman.
Yes, and it sounded like council in general was okay using an RFQ or RFP process to collect those qualifications and then review at that point. Is that correct?
You mean as opposed to a firm?
Like
No,
to
that's
use
just
that
a process. Wait a minute.
process.
Hold it.
To use that process to figure out who is interested, and they all submit the same qualifications. So we can use that process to figure out who our new temporary attorney or firm would be. So then you have that for baseline for temporary, however long that temporary is.
Correct. I believe that's correct. Correct, counsel?
Yes.
So we're going to go through HR, either through an RFP, RFQ process.
And
Everybody
bring it-
submits on the same criteria, and it's ultimately council's decision.
Can I ask how long this process before you open up this? Because obviously if a majority of us are not happy with Pierce Coleman, there would be some urgency to it.
So I think it depends on how much involvement does council want me to bring back like the proposed RFP qualifications to review before it goes out at a meeting? Or do you feel comfortable with staff moving forward without a full discussion on what that looks like? Because if we needed to have that discussion, it would probably be the first meeting in February to have that draft and ready to go out. And then I can honestly tell you I am not an expert on procurement law, and I don't, Jeff is here, he may know, what the timeframes are to have to post something like that.
I just think based on past experience, something like that, we would be looking at. It depends on the scoring process. So if staff isn't reviewing and scoring, if we're bringing them forward to you to score, that would expedite the process. But in a traditional sense where staff might review and score RFPs, that's probably a 6 to 8 week process most times. We'd be working on it as quickly as possible, obviously, but can't guarantee anything sooner than that.
So you're saying if you bring it to us and when we go through that, we can expedite the process?
I believe so. And there's some factors. How long do we want it out on the street? How long do we want it advertised? Usually there's an end date. I would say for something like this, 4-week advertising minimum, probably. You know, just we could cut it down to 2 weeks if you like. It's whatever the council desires in this case.
Time is of the essence.
This council does not run the city. And I'm comfortable with its staff and their expertise to do what they need to do because they've done it well in the past.
Yeah, I say, let's move forward. Let's get this moving now. Let's not wait, bring it back to council in a couple of weeks and blah, blah, blah. No. You know what you're doing. It's fresh in your mind still. Let's just move forward.
So are we comfortable then with a 4-week, leaving it open for 4 weeks to try to get a wide variety of firms to respond? That seems like a reasonable time frame to me.
I'm good with 4 weeks.
Okay. Okay, so then, yes, we're comfortable going through HR with the standard RFQ process. Open it up for 4 weeks, bring the respondents back to us. We'll review them here in public and make our decision.
Awesome.
Okay. Any other questions?
would you like to, I don't think it matters, I guess, yet, what our real long-term solution is going to be if we're focusing right now on who the temporary firm will be to move forward. So unless council wants to have more discussion on what the next step looks like after that, I think that we're okay to bring that back later.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay. I think I have what I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbur. Okay, I'll motion to adjourn. Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Karat seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, Council.
And it's right to do it. I mean, there's recruitment for